All right, we're now in studio with Gena. Gena, welcome to our conversation today. How are you?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I am so grateful to have you here. When I met you at the reception desk, I told you I feel like I need to go get a rock star to spike up my energy because you are such an energetic person.
Thank you. It's a gift.
It is a gift.
It is.
It is definitely a God-given gift. Well, we are going to take advantage of that gift in our conversation today as we talk about the value of finding connection in community. Okay?
I love that topic.
So just so all of our listeners know, when it comes to caring for seniors in our community, I feel like Gena Bertelsen is...
It took me a while to
I know, right? After all those years, is a rock star. So
thank you.
I actually first met you when I first got into financial service about 8 years ago. Walked into the senior center and just wanted to talk to someone about like community activities, classes, what you do there. And I was introduced to you and I thought, well, this is fun. I want to be a part of this community because you made it so energetic and exciting to be there at the community center.
I think a lot of people make that comment when they come in the doors. There's a totally different feeling than other senior centers they've been to. And
that's so fun.
I am so grateful about that.
I know. Unfortunately, with your personality, you mentioned on your business card, they have you listed as the program director.
I know. Isn't that so boring?
So boring. I hear that you had requested that they label you as the
queen of everything.
Queen of everything.
Or the glitter thrower.
I like the glitter thrower.
Both of those fit me perfectly.
That's fun.
However, they didn't do it.
Unfortunately. But we're gonna call you the queen of everything today in our conversation. And for our listeners, just so you know, what we're going to be talking about is something that I think is extremely valuable. And if all of us could understand a little bit more, I think we'd have a lot more enjoyment as our life progresses and we get older in all areas of our life. So before we get into the conversation of the value of connection in community, I would love to know just a little bit about you. Like, how long have you been a program director there, or the queen of everything? Married, kids?
Devin, I was hoping you would have come up with some florally fantastic description about me that I could just pretend I was really humble over here.
Okay, sorry.
You clearly didn't do your job.
No, I did not.
Great.
Forgive me.
I am forgiven. Well, about me, I've been the program director for 7 years. I just celebrated my 7th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Lucky number 7. Thank you very much. In my personal life, my husband and I have been married about, it'll be 33 years in February.
Wow, congratulations. That's phenomenal.
I love it. He's so fantastic. But we have 2 fantastic daughters. They're amazing. One wonderful son-in-law who takes such good care of not only the daughter he's married to, but looks out for the other one also. Nobody's reproduced for us yet. We're a little sad about that. We do have 2 grand dogs and a grand cat, but the familial resemblance, uncanny.
Uncanny. No. Mm-hmm. Now you have me so curious. Maybe we should put a picture of you guys in the show notes so we can see that.
I totally can do that.
Okay.
We've got Hank and Jaeger and a cat named Cheese.
Wow.
Yeah, those are the grand pets. And then, of course, you know that I'm a crazy chicken lady.
You are a chicken lady.
So I have a small hobby farm at my home.
How many chickens do you have now?
Half a dozen. Yes, and they're all named after dinner.
So appropriate.
Yes, so I have teriyaki, Parmesan, chicken, because when you come home and say what's for dinner, you get the word chicken.
Right.
Cacciatore, Malibu, and Barbie is short for barbecue. And they have their own Instagram account. Please go follow. It's called The Cluck Report.
The Cluck Report. We'll put that in the show notes too. That's hilarious.
They're fantastic.
Well, what a great intro. That tells us a lot about your personality as you share that. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So as we kind of start off this conversation about the value of connection in the community, I feel like you were perfectly positioned to answer this. And the reason why I feel like this is a very powerful conversations for our listeners as part of this podcast is we're all trying to be bigger, better, brighter in retirement, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just about making your finances better. it's primarily actually just about making your happiness better. So if you can kind of set the stage for this conversation, what's the best way for us to view how to improve and be happier in our later years?
It's interesting that that's the word we're using, because several months ago I was doing some studying and trying to figure out the program for 2020. And 2020 is synonymous with perfect vision. And I kind of came up with perfect vision, perfect happiness. And everyone's level of happiness is different to be perfect. But I felt like there were basic components that would attribute or give you the tools that would increase your level of happiness. And so that's what we're focusing on for 2020. Perfect vision, perfect happiness.
Perfect vision, perfect happiness.
Yeah.
Wow.
It kind of was spurred on from, I was reading about this study that Harvard University did, and it was the longest running study on living people. And they started with, actually it was over 700 people, 700 men. And some of them had just started school at Harvard University, and some of them were from kind of a lower economic area in Boston. And they met with them every 2 years. They did blood tests. They did mental evaluations. They had interviews with them. It wasn't just a matter of, hey, here's
fill out a survey. Are you happy or not happy?
You happier this year? But they really followed them, and they followed them throughout their life. So they still have about 60 of the original people who started. They're in their 90s at this point, and now they're also interviewing their spouses and following their children, and they'll move on to their grandchildren. So it'll be very much an intergenerational type of study. But the thing they found with all of that studying and all that testing, the one thing they found that led to a happy life was social connections. Being able to have someone you could count on, someone that had your back. It didn't matter if you were married or widowed or lived, or lived alone all your life. It mattered that you had a relationship of people that you could count on.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's powerful. So all of what culturally we think make us happy, the car, the house, the bank account, the ability to go out to eat, the ability to travel, all of those things are a bit of a facade, and it really comes down to these connections. So I love what you shared about connections not having to be just family, because when a lot of us think about happiness into retirement, we think about, it's only going to be happy if my spouse is still with me to travel to Europe because we've always wanted to do that. Or I'm only going to be happy if my children have 25 grandchildren and I'm able to do a date with them every other week, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Both of those make us happy or contribute to that because those are connections.
Right.
But if I'm hearing you correctly, Gena, you're saying that connections don't have to be just family members. Those connections can be created elsewhere. Is that right?
Well, yes. And in fact, even more so now in our society. If you look back 30 years ago, people were living closer to their families. Like my husband and I, as we were raising our little girls, we were the first of 4 children to move away from my husband's parents, meaning move further than a mile away. Mm-hmm. But every day we would walk up to their house and see grandma and grandpa, and it was something we did as a family. And now where, someone will get a job and it will be 3 states away, our families, our biological families are kind of spread out so much more that you're not having those family dinners and I'm just dropping in to see what you're doing. We're texting and we're using, the phone. But
to stay informed, but that's not connection.
Than having a face-to-face conversation, someone saying your name or touching you on the shoulder. In fact, there's actually an epidemic of the need of just physical touch for a lot of our aging population. If they live alone, if they don't have that physical touch, it actually can kill a person. And so again, your social connections, when you walk into my senior center, it's something I try to do with as many people as I can on a daily basis, to say their name, talk to them, touch them on the shoulder. I'll give them a little side hug, but that is something that is vital to the health and well-being of everyone, of humans. I have my oldest daughter is a dispatcher for the sheriff's department. She's been there for 13 years. And one of the saddest things she's told me about her job is the people who live alone, that don't have family around, that call several times a day just to talk to someone.
Wow.
That's
unfortunate.
It is, isn't it? It's obviously
it's a very low
not.
level of connection. They're just seeking survival at that point.
Right.
That's not the touch that you were talking about, or someone calling them by name, or letting them know that they care.
Yeah.
Wow.
So while it's not the right use of 911, the 911 system,
true.
It truly is an emergency that we as a society need to kind of look outside of ourselves and say, who could use a hug? Sometimes it feels awkward, and I think we move away from that kind of thing, but it is vital.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gena, how do we find connection in our community then? How, as a Queen of Everything program director, how have you seen that happen within the communities for those that do or don't have close family? Because I know a lot of people do still have that close family member that's around. On a community level, how is that found, do you think?
Well, obviously, the first thing I'm going to tell you is to check out a senior center. It is what you let it be. So, and especially if you aren't finding the things you need there, you don't have to go just to that one senior center. I like to tell people, we accept even the lowlanders. At ours, we have members from throughout the county. We even have members who live in Germany. And when they are here visiting family, they come to our center, which is really great. But go where you feel like you belong. So, of course, the senior center, it's not your grandma's senior center anymore. I think, again, there's a stigma with that. Nobody's in a rocking chair. There is not a rocking chair on the premises. We are active. One of the things we have at Orem Senior Friendship Center is it's called Brilliant University. It's exclusive there, and we have 2 semesters a year, and we have classes that I think are pretty unique. Right now, we're currently in the middle of one of our spring semester, and we have a class called Break Free from Your Emotional Prisons. It's fantastic. Wow, I want to go to it every week.
This is not like artwork or literature.
We have that too. We have a class on I Love Literature, which each week you're introduced to 5 new books by a different person. We have a watercolor group, a mixed media art. We have a full wood shop, a leatherworking class. But we also have a class called What's Your Sign? And it's all about astrology.
Way fun.
And they are learning how to map their own birth chart. It's fantastic. We've got a class that I was able to find someone from the State Department of Aging on lip reading. As you are aging and you are losing some of your ability to hear, as well as you and I, heard 30 years ago.
Right.
The skill of lip reading can really come in handy.
Wow. Yeah, that's out of the box thinking at this brilliant university.
Yeah. We had, let me think, what other classes we have? Trust me, a lot. Financial aid. Not financial aid, but learning how to do your finances. You came and taught some classes that I know they loved.
That's right.
So I was really thankful for that. You did that for a couple of years. I remember them telling me, oh my gosh, I've saved so much money as they went through those and learned the skills that you taught them. I thought that was just fantastic. Anything that can enrich their lives, that's what we're trying to do. We do have a class this semester on meditation. that is also another great component of happiness, on building your happiness. And so just basic skills on these things.
So as we're talking about finding connection in the community, what I hear you saying that's so wonderful is it's not about just showing up and having a few activities. It's about really enriching your life through education. It's really seeking to find community and connection through doing specific activities, but make it interesting, make it valuable. Yeah.
We have a group of ladies who come and do Tai Chi together and folk dancing together. They don't meet anywhere else. They meet at the senior center. I have one senior who tells all of her friends it's the country club.
I love that.
Let's look at it that way. If that's going to get you here. So
that is a healthy perspective to look at it.
It's not, yes, our center serves lunch Monday through Friday, but those who are aging into this time, which I think you and I talked about earlier, that the new word I've learned, instead of calling them seniors, is to call them perennials.
Wow.
And isn't that such a great word? It is such a great
word. And the first time you mentioned it before we started recording kind of blew my mind a little bit. The analogy that we can drive between those. So talk a little bit about why you feel like that's such a powerful.
Well, it just suggested to me, I love gardening, and I'm always looking for those perennials that, of course, are chicken friendly. Right. But it made me think about what really does a perennial do? And if you think about the root system that it builds in the soil, and it kind of protects your soil from eroding, and it continues to bloom, it continues to grow. It has seasons in its life, just like you and I do, just like everyone does. It really, perennial just is the perfect word to describe someone who is aging into their senior years.
We have the millennials, and then we have the perennials.
Right.
Those that keep coming back, they have a lot of experience, they've been there before.
We keep coming back, for sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
That's so great. So it's kind of sticking with this topic of finding connection in the community. There most likely are those that are listening to this podcast thinking like, well, like I'm in my 50s or I'm in my 60s. I'm too young. I don't want to go there yet. That's a season for the future.
I get that all the time. I will have people come in and come up to the desk and say, I'm way too young to be here, but my daughter has brought me here. And, and I'll say, well, how young are you? 94. And so I just like to do some quick math and say, this is how many years you've missed out hanging out and having fun with us. Right. So it isn't, years and years ago, I remember my grandparents going to the senior center to get cheese. Like the government would provide cheese for our seniors and different commodities that way. That's not what it is anymore. And we have to look forward with those who are aging into this population. In fact, 10,000 people every day are turning 75 years old in America. 10,000. So number one, if you think you're the Lone Ranger, you're not. And all of these people are looking for connections. Yeah. You have something in common with them.
Right. So culturally, regardless of where you live, and I'm very cognizant of the reality that not all listeners are here in Utah.
Right.
But throughout your community, wherever you live, there's got to be some places to gather, right? Whether that's a church community,
right?
Whether that's a city senior center community.
And if there's not something, I think you should create it.
That's a good point.
Because we're all here to make this world a better place. And if it's going to bless your life, certainly it's going to bless someone else's life. If it's not already there, find out why and make it happen.
Yeah, and it might initially be somewhere as informal as a Starbucks coffee shop.
Exactly.
Across
a book club.
A book club.
Yeah, just some kind of connection that people know you're there and that you will have their back.
To find that ongoing connection in the community, do you feel like a lot of your members of of the Orem Friendship Center come every day, every week? How consistent are those that have really like thrown themselves into being a part of a community?
Well, I have about 90 volunteers, and they are very, very consistent because they each have a purpose of what they take care of for me. I need them, and when you don't feel needed, where's your reason for living? In fact, the reason for living, or even the reason for getting up, in a lot of the studying I've been doing for our Perfect Vision, Perfect Happiness program, one of the things I learned about was these groups in Japan called, when you're born, you're not just born into your biological family, but you're born into a moai. And it is a group of people. They're not necessarily exactly your age, but they have your back, and you go through life, you're expected to. This is your group. These are the people that have your back, that will be there for you to celebrate or to cry, but you do the same for them. And it's even in these groups, it's understood that if, let's say, one of them won the lottery, it's understood that they split it with everyone in their moai. It's not just for yourself, it's for this group.
Wow.
It's so strong. In fact, they were doing a study about the people who lived the longest, and they found these 5 different little epicenters across the globe, and one of them was in Okinawa, Japan. And this little moai that they were showing actually had 12 people still in it, and the average age was 102.
Incredible.
And they regularly get together, whether it's over a meal, which that's a great social experience. There's nothing more basic and traditional than breaking bread with somebody, right? Whether it's making or having a meal together, or a shared activity, or a hobby that they all enjoy, or just visiting. Those are such important connections. So with the moai, they also have this term called ikiga, and it is your purpose for getting up in the morning, your purpose for living. And it's something that you look at what you're good at, what you could make money at, or if you've retired, what you can share, what your passion is, and what the world needs. And when all of those things converge, the center of that is where you find what your ikiga is. It was so beautiful to learn that. Now I want to go to Japan.
Yeah, there you go.
Learn more
Call it a
about
business trip. See if the city will pay for it.
Yes, please. I'm sure they would for studying, of course.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's powerful. Finding connection in our families are obviously very natural, but not always accessible. Right. So finding connection in our community on a consistent basis. I love that you shared that showing up with a purpose, having a purpose, ask to be given a purpose. Heaven forbid we ask for responsibilities, right?
Share what you become an expert in things. Share what you know. I have so many people come up to me and say, hey, I know how to do this. I'd love to help if I can. Boom, I put them to work. Right.
So. And I'll share a little bit of my own experience. I've taught a charitable giving class at your community for a few years there. And so I've had hundreds of your members kind of come through my class, and I've been able to interact with them a little bit on a different scale because I'm the teacher, they're the student, but I've been inspired by their willingness to take on a new thought process or a new process or think of things a different way, that we've absolutely been able to help some of those make some valuable changes.
Absolutely.
But as I think through a lot of the people that I've met there, I would actually label them as a sage. And I'll say that lightly.
That's a
perennial sage, because I feel like when I think of the word sage, I think of someone who has experience, who has wisdom, has a lot to give. And there's a lot of people in those classes that I actually wish I could sit down and have a few hour conversation with, because there's a lot of experience and wisdom that I could absolutely learn. Yeah. And I think a lot of folks, unfortunately, wait to be asked about that wisdom. So I would imagine if someone was given a task and an opportunity and a purpose to share, so you mentioned you have 90 volunteers, that's a great opportunity. So on this topic of finding connection in community, as we're speaking to our listeners, I would say reach out and ask for a responsibility. Think about what you're good at and share what you're good at.
Volunteering is a great way, number one, not only to increase your happiness, but to find a connection. And you might find that whether it's a religious organization or another, I called a 501c type of organization, the Red Cross or United Way, where you can volunteer and share some of your time. That blesses so many people. It gives you that connection. If you think about it, we get to a point where we retire. And for years, maybe 30 or 40 years, we have had this work family that we're connecting with every Monday through Friday. Like, some people say, I've got a work husband or whatever. When you retire, all of that's gone. In fact, I remember reading one doctor saying that the two most difficult years in your life and most dangerous years are the year you're born and the year you retire.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you lose those connections when you retire. So you really had to be conscious about going out and filling in that time with the things you want to be doing that are going to get you up in the morning.
Yeah, that's powerful. As you know, and we'll get to later in this podcast, all of my guests that are on this podcast, I ask them the same question. What makes you feel alive and relevant in your life? And this is the heart and the core of why I ask this question, because I genuinely feel like when we lose purpose, when we stop being relevant in our own life, and then in the life of our community, we start to dwindle. We start to die. We start to lose that happiness and purpose. And so maintaining that, absolutely, you go through this transition when you retire from needed every day by a work family, whether you have employees, if you're the boss, or whether you're the employee and you have a boss, you are needed every day. So to go from being needed to not needed is a risky time. I like how you kind of phrase that, like it's a dangerous time. You need to find or reconnect to your relevancy, your purpose, to maintain that level of happiness throughout. Far too often I speak with people that are a few years into retirement, and they seem to always have this aha, which is, retirement is not just about moving closer to the beach and reading more books and golfing more rounds. It's actually a lot different than I thought it would be, which is good that they're coming to that realization. But how great would it be if they could realize from day one, I need to maintain relevancy. I need to maintain my connections. And this is how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to unplug. I'm not going to totally disconnect for a couple of years while I move down to the Keys. But I'm going to stay connected, and they can continue to have that.
Yeah. Investing in themselves.
Yeah.
Really, you kind of have to put yourself on your schedule. In a sense. Make an appointment with yourself. This is what I'm doing for me. This is what keeps me connected, keeps me grounded, keeps me social.
That's great. Moving on, I would love to hear a little bit more as we kind of start to get to the close of this podcast episode, a little bit more about your Perfect Vision, Perfect Happiness. Like what inspired you to create that program? It fits absolutely in with our conversation today. What inspired you to create that? And then give us like a few nuggets of like the outcome that you perceive from that program.
Well, I guess inspired by, I started out, I'm an idea machine. So 2020, I'm just trying, that's, again, so synonymous with perfect vision. And I see a lot of my seniors that have lost that light. And I want to give it back to them. I want to fan those flames of that little ember that's still there and let them know, kind of empower them to be able to do this we've talked a lot together as a group about, have you ever set a goal that was a whole year long? And a couple people said, yeah, I wanted to finish my house by myself on my time. And this man, one of my patrons, it's incredible. He showed us pictures of this bathroom that he worked on for almost an entire year.
Wow.
And he had taken these geodes and 1,000-year-old coins and pieces, different kinds of wood, and in the bathroom across from the throne, because I'm the queen, across from the throne, he made this wall that is really this visually beautiful, almost an I Spy wall. And it took him, just the wall took him 3 months, as he had been collecting these things throughout his life, but as he put them together as a puzzle to fit this wall, it was stunning. He did it all by himself. That was a goal for him. And I said, did you think about it every day? He said, well, yeah, I did. And I'm thinking, well, you probably used the bathroom every day. Of course you did. You saw it sitting in front of you. I said, did you work on it every day? He said, not every day, but I was still thinking about it. And I said, was it worth it? And without fail, with every person that I, had speak about the goals they had set, everyone without fail said, yes, it was worth it. We're worth it. And I think sometimes we forget that. So I think the happiness just kind of came along with that. That to me is the best gift I could give someone. That's what I want for my kids, whatever they choose in their life. My biggest goal is that they're happy. I will feel as successful. I will feel as I've done the best job I could as a parent if they are happy. So I went from there. I've kind of developed so we've got Motivation Monday. Every Monday we have a TED Talk. A lot of them had never even seen a TED Talk before.
Fun experience.
In fact, my husband even asked me, who's Ted? No, it's not a person. So we have a TED Talk and then an open discussion afterwards. What did you just learn in that TED Talk? How can we apply that in our lives that will help us build happiness? And then throughout the week, each day something is added to it to help build that level of happiness. We're encouraging them to, we've created pages that are journaling pages. So on Monday, it's a little bit different because there's a space to write the things you learned from the TED Talk. But to focus on what was the best thing that happened in the last 24 hours. Every day, we want you to do that. In fact, I've told them every night I lay down in bed and I think, what was the best part of my day? The best thing that happened? And you'll come up with something really quick and then you start thinking, oh, but wait, this was really good too. And now your brain is focused on very positive things. Another component that we put into this was writing down 3 things you're grateful for every day. And not just writing down 3 things, but why. Why are you grateful for those things? Really think about it. And for the first month, you can't do any, you can't double up. Also, doing a random act of kindness on a daily basis. That's a huge part of happiness. Meditation. Again, we're giving them the skills of meditating, teaching them how important it is to them and to their well-being. We're asking them to do it every day. So they've gotten 3 ring binders and every day they've got this paperwork and they're checking off what they're doing and it's just kind of guiding them through.
What I love about this is there's some absolute intention that has to happen every day.
Every day.
I think one of the misbeliefs that we have is we deserve to be happy just because we're showing up every day in this world.
Does that make you happy just to show up?
No.
You got to be all there.
You got to be all in.
Yes.
And I think that this idea that we should be happy just because we're alive is kind of a misunderstanding, because happiness is a muscle, I think. It's a skill that we learn that if we're not happy, as we do a lot of these positive intentions and activities that you're mentioning, we're kind of getting some muscle memory and learning how to be happy. We're learning how to think of the positive things and not be a whiner. We're learning how to see things optimistically. We're learning how to serve others. That if those don't come naturally, then you got to learn how to do it. Right. I would agree with a lot of people, the fact that a lot of people, that does come naturally. Do you know why it comes naturally? Because they did all the work before with intention on remembering to speak kindly, remembering to serve others. They've already done the work. So if you're looking at someone and thinking, well, I'm not happy, but they're happy, I wish that I was that person. Well, you can, right?
If wishes were fishes, the world would be a sea.
Right. And so having an intention and moving forward, I love that about your program, that you're just creating space for people to create action and start moving towards being happier. So 2020, perfect vision.
Perfect vision, perfect happiness.
Perfect happiness. I love that. Wonderful.
Thank you.
So finding value in connection in the community. Any additional insights? I feel like you're the perfect person to ask this, and we've talked through quite a bit. Is there anything that we have not talked about that you want to share before we wrap things up?
Yesterday I was making a presentation and I talked a lot about the ikigai and your purpose, and I likened it to finding your own tribe when you're making these connections. And I actually came up with, just because again my brain just never stops and I didn't bring it with me, but a tribe, each letter can stand for something, and I think the most important one that I can recall right now is the B in the word tribe, and that's just to be brave. It's hard to do something different, but once you're there and you make that connection and you realize you're needed, even if it's just you and your personality, you are a gift on this earth. Share that gift. Don't keep it all wrapped up. Let us unwrap it and just let it bless the world. But be brave. Be brave. That's a great insight, which it takes a little bit of courage to step out of our comfort zone as we seek to find connection. So that's awesome. Great insight. So as we finish off, I actually want to come back to you personally and say, for you, Gena, what makes you feel alive and relevant? Even outside of what you've already shared, I can already feel here in our small studio that you love what you do as the queen of everything and the glitter thrower. Do you have Kleenex in here? Because I'm probably going to start crying, but I believe I was put on earth to make a difference for this generation. I take that very, very seriously. And I put a lot of thought and prayer into everything I do for them. And I feel very guided that if I can make a positive difference in their life, if they walk out that door and they're grinning, I've done my job. That makes me feel alive. I go home so happy. Sometimes I'm absolutely drained and just need a nap. But I love my job. I'm in the right seat on the bus. Yeah, you are definitely full of life as you show up for those perennials every day, right? Yeah. I'll keep planting them. Keep planting. Yes. We love the pretty flowers. Nice. Well, Gena, thank you so very much. My pleasure. For joining us here on this podcast. This has been a very valuable conversation for me to see my own happiness and connections in a new light. And I'm sure that many of our listeners out there are going to listen to this and they're going to pull something from this. It's going to stir something within them that will encourage them to improve some of the connections that they currently have or seek to find and build a few more. Be brave, reach out. Yes. So thank you for contributing to so many today. And if they would like the paperwork, we've actually made it available on our Facebook page, and we have a Pinterest page too, that they can print off those journaling sheets and see the links that we're sharing. To your program. Mm-hmm. Great. Well, if you want to give us some of that information, we'll make that available on our show notes, and we'll try to spread the word. Fantastic. Great. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That was a wonderful interview. We look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Bye-bye.